So how much money would you make if you followed every single one of Gary Vee's NFT recommendations? People think this is the ultimate get-rich-quick scheme hack in Web 3.0. 1. Gary is super switched on and he puts hours of studies into this. He knows the markets and he's gonna predict the winners over the long term. And 2, even if he gets them wrong, there's millions of Gary Vee fans following his advice where if you're quick enough and get into the projects, you can just flip onto them. And in this video, we're gonna break down Gary Vee's 5 last NFT project recommendations to see exactly how much you would make if you followed them and if that hypothesis is true. Let's jump in. Before we get to number 1, there's 2 things we have to remember, 2 caveats, however you want to say it, that are super important. 1, Gary Vee doesn't believe in quick flipping. He's trying to hold these NFTs and anything he recommends for decades. He hasn't sold any or dumped or pumped and dumped on any of his fans. So we're judging his recommendations over about a 3-month period where he's really recommending them for 10 years. So take that with a grain of salt. And number 2, this one's really important. Depending on how smart and how quick you are, you can get Gary Vee's recommendations for very different prices. For example, Gary Vee recommended this project, Women and Weapons, very recently, while they were minting for just 0.05 Ethereum. But if you were just a couple of hours too slow on this and didn't have the alert set up on your phone, you'd have to go and buy this in the secondary market for up to 0.2 Ethereum, 4 times the price of if you were quick enough. So we're gonna be working these out on the averaged and the lowest that you can get, but just remember, the quicker you are on following his advice, the more money you can make. NFT project number 1 that Gary recommended is called Curio Cards. These are the first ever artwork on the Ethereum blockchain. Gary went and bought his own Curio Cards, he bought a lot of them, on the 14th of July, 2021. He then recommended them publicly with this right here on the 16th of July. Now this graph is a little bit hard to read, but the lowest price for that day was 0.1 Ethereum and the average was 0.45 Ethereum. And in the last 96 days since Gary Vee put out this recommendation for these Curio Cards, they've spent 82 of those days in profit. And if you were really quick and picked up those cards for 0.1 ETH, at its latest peak, you could have sold them for 18 times your investment at 1.8 Ethereum. And if you're still holding, like I am, you'd currently be up 4x on your investment for the base card. This one is a big tick and a big plus. Thanks, Gary, for the recommendation. Number 2, Tom Sachs Rocket Factory. Gary bought his Tom Sachs Rocket Factory NFTs on the 7th of August, publicly recommended them on the 8th of August right here, and the floor price, or the lowest price you could get these at, jumped from 2.89 Ethereum to 4.1 Ethereum immediately after his recommendation. Since then, it's struggled to gain some traction, excluding this 30 ETH outlier day, which is just a really big sale that's bringing up the average. It has stayed very steady, but has recently started to plummet down to a 1.6 Ethereum floor, which is fascinating because the highest sale of Tom Sachs Rocket Factory was 110 ETH. This is before Gary Vee even recommended them. And out of the last 73 days since Gary Vee's recommendation, only 5 of those days you could have sold for a profit. So at the moment, this is a big thumbs down on making money from this flip, at least in the short term. Project number 3 that Gary recommended is Crypto Strikers. He privately bought on the 15th of August and then publicly recommended them here on the 17th of August 2021. As you can see from the graph, the lowest sale for that day was 0.35 ETH, but keep in mind this is the lowest sale over a 24-hour period, meaning that people who followed Gary's recommendation in those 24 hours bought for the average price of 1.6 Ethereum. Since then, the graphs have spiked a few times, but this is mainly due to the market being slow and more rare or sought after cards are selling on those individual days. But put simply, if you bought this project upon Gary's recommendation, especially for the average price on that day, you'd spend 7 days, just 7 out of the last 66 days since the recommendation, in the green. Big thumbs down, at least in the short term, for this project. This takes us to number 4, Koala Intelligence Agency. Gary went and bought one of the rarest koalas in this NFT collection for 22 or could have been 21 Ethereum. Now this is obviously the high-end koalas and not what you can get at the floor prices, but he's a big believer in it because he spent that much money on it. Gary privately bought on the 25th of August, publicly recommended once again here on the 26th of August, just the day after. And as you can see from the graph, it's crazy. During the day of Gary's recommendation, the lowest sale over the 24 hours peaked at 0.75 Ethereum to 0.98 Ethereum the next day, including sales, like Gary's, of over 20 ETH. Since then, these koalas have been on a wild decline and haven't managed to come back. Just 2 out of the 55 days since this recommendation have been profitable for the average purchaser. That, again, another thumbs down. And that leads us to World of Women. Gary publicly recommended it on the 28th of August in his Discord here. A lot of people didn't initially like the artwork and were skeptical to buy, but still, Gary's got a lot of followers and it's sold out. You could have minted these World of Women when Gary recommended them for 0.08 Ethereum, and right now the floor price for each card is over 2 Ethereum. That's over a 20 times return on your money. Remember, with all these projects, you can mint as many as you want, therefore getting a 20x return on your money if you were to sell now. All 84 days since the mint have been profitable for this one, and it goes to show that Gary Vee's not going to be right, at least in the short term, for all of his projects, but the ones that he's right for are going to more than pay for the ones that you miss. Make sure you hit that like button below, that subscribe button, especially if you want to know what Gary's recommending, or if you want me to go deeper into this and make a big chart on all of Gary's recommendations.